Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Clifford Stemme. Welcome back to the College Hacked YouTube channel. Today we're going to be answering your questions as left in comments on my videos, and we're going to be giving you advice so that you can accomplish and graduate as quickly and inexpensively as possible so that you can go and build the career that you want to build. That's what this channel is all about. That is what these free videos are about. It's what my newsletter linked below is all about, and it's what the consultations that I do one-on-one with people are all about. Think of this video as something that you don't necessarily need to watch, but you can just have on in the background. Think of it as like a call-in radio advice show where people can ask questions and the host of the show will answer those questions. That's what this is all about, and we'll go ahead and get started. First thing I want to say before that, though, is that I'm going to be bringing a new feature to my offerings very soon that I think you might find interesting. Essentially, a one-on-one consultation with me, which is my primary offering, the way that I give the highest quality of advice that I can to people. Typically, people come in for a 45-minute session, and I'm able to save them $10,000 to $20,000 in a single session that also usually has them graduating 2 years earlier than they thought they would. Typically, a second session then goes on to help them put together a step-by-step plan to be able to accomplish that. Something that I'm going to be doing soon is offering a replacement version for those, and it's going to be sort of like a 10-person cohort where you sign up for like a 6-month period or approximately that amount of time, and you and 9 other people who are going back to college go back to college together. Sometimes online college can be really lonely. You don't know your classmates. You haven't had a lot of classes with the same person over and over again. You have different professors all the time. And it can also be difficult to stay motivated. And it can also be difficult to not exactly know what you're doing. How do I make this professor happy with me? How do I pass this course? Which CLEP exam do I take here? Hey, this CLEP didn't transfer the way I thought it would. Should I take a different one? And so the idea is to build a community where a group of people, including myself, are together through this process of you getting your bachelor's degree. So stay tuned for that. If you want to be first in line to get access to that, the newsletter down below is the link that you should go to sign up for the newsletter, because that's the first place that I'm going to be opening up registration. As you know, 2,500 people are subscribed to this channel, but this first cohort is only going to have 10 people in it. So make sure that you are ready when that comes out. That being said, let's go ahead and jump into some questions. We left off last time with a question from Renee, who asked, what do you mean by hack? And we did talk about that, so be sure to check out the other Q&A video, which included so many really, really good questions. But let's go ahead and jump into this. So Brendan Pacias said, have you heard of California Coast University? If so, what are your thoughts on it, and would you recommend it? So I did go ahead and answer him, and here are some of the things that I said. They are very CLEP friendly, which is great. That's a big thing to look for when you're trying to determine if a school is a good idea for you to go to. Are they CLEP friendly? Do they accept a lot of CLEPs? Because usually that's a sign they accept a lot of transfer credits in general, and that they're going to be willing to let you, hack out of a large portion of your degree. Typically, a bachelor's degree is going to require that you do at least 30 credits in residence at the school. In residence doesn't mean that you're a student on campus. It just means that you're taking 30 credits through that school's programs. That's pretty common, pretty average. And so you want to make sure that you're getting at least that. Typically, you want to be able to transfer in up to 90 credit hours. And if the school says that those 90 credit hours can be CLEP or Sophia or Straight-Align, now you're really talking. Now you just have to pick a major at that school that works. So if you're looking at a school and you're thinking, is this a good school to go to? Should I be considering it? Check out how they treat CLEP, because that's a good indicator for other things, and see what their residency requirement is. The smaller, the better. The problem with California Coast University is that they are a for-profit, and I've got a whole video about for-profits that you should definitely check out. But suffice it to say, for-profits are never going to value you as much as they value your money. And that's just not really a good perspective to be going into education with. It's not the system that the American education system is built on. Yes, it's very expensive, but it's not very profitable in general. And so it's not for profit. It's usually a nonprofit. It's meant to make the world a better place, involving maybe something of a loss of money. The hilarious thing about for-profits is that they typically have lower quality degrees, but they are typically more expensive and have like less of a good reputation with employers and with other people out there in the world. They kind of have a reputation as diploma mills. Not all of them are so bad. I think University of Phoenix is probably one of the better ones that I tend to like more than most of them, or maybe Grand Canyon University. But even those, like, look at their graduation rates. They're going to be low, which is typically a sign that they either accept everybody, hey, everybody come in, give me your money, or it's a sign that they just don't have a good system that's designed to actually get students from the beginning to the end. All right. Thank you, Brendan. Great question. Chase asks a really probing question here. He says, would you say on average you would study each CLEP for about 3.5 weeks before taking the test? I think I've kind of forgotten what my exact average was when I was going through this process, because you'll have to remember, like, I think I took my first CLEP exam at like age 14 or early 15. It was the Analyzing and Interpreting Literature. So if you're doing CLEP exams, these are a really good way to earn college credits. And if you don't know what a CLEP exam is, basically it's a competency-based test that says, hey, this person, Chad, got X amount of points on the CLEP test. Hey, college, you like CLEP tests. If he gets this score, do you accept it for credit? And then every college is different, but they'll say, oh yeah, we accept it if you score at least a 50 or if you score at least a 60. We'll give them college credit for that. Okay. So I did my first one at 15 or 14, and then I knocked all the rest of them out by the time I was 18, which is when I graduated college. So I did about 24 CLEPs and DSSTs, DSSTs being very similar to CLEPs. They're usually just slightly more advanced in their topics. We'll sometimes transfer in as like higher credits. So like you might have like a 100 level CLEP. That's like the most basic level. But sometimes DSSTs will come in as a 300 or 400. So a little bit more advanced, a little more impressive, but not necessarily something that you're going to die if you don't have. But if I had 24 and I did it during that amount of time, you could just kind of do the basic math there. That's like 8 weeks a CLEP, I think. Right? Yeah, because 4 years, 24 of them, that'd be about 8 weeks a CLEP. But there were definitely times when I wasn't trying to study. I didn't really seriously starting to take CLEPs and do this really crazy until about 16. But I typically found that once I got my rhythm, I was finishing a CLEP exam, studying for it about every 2 to 2.5 weeks. Principles of Management and Marketing were easy. Introduction to Sociology and Psychology were easy. Biology, incredibly hard, took me like 3 months. And college mathematics probably took me a little bit longer than 2 weeks. I know U.S. history, too, was really hard for me for some reason, and so was macroeconomics, and so those took me a few more weeks as well. But then there were ones that I think Principles of Management probably took me like a week. And I know Analyzing and Interpreting Lit took me 15 minutes to study for, not a joke. But that was something that I was personally really excited about and passionate about. So what you have to do here is not set some sort of arbitrary goal of like every 3.5 weeks, I'm going to knock out another CLEP test. What you need to be doing is saying, all right, I'm going to take my first CLEP exam and I'm going to study it until I think I'm ready to pass it. And then the next CLEP exam, try to do it a little bit faster. I wouldn't really aim for fewer than 2 weeks unless you have a lot of free time, you're super, super motivated, or you really want to burn yourself out. But really the only person you need to beat here is yourself. Don't try to beat other people or some arbitrary number. Chad, great question. Let's talk to Vendetta 201, who says, hello, thank you for your top 5 easiest CLEP exams video, but I do have a question. Which is easier, college algebra, college math, or quantitative business analysis? I'm really not good with algebra and would hate to waste money starting with basic algebra and or introduction algebra. What would you take if your major is accounting? This question is hilarious to me because if my major was accounting, I would assume that means that I'm pretty good at math. And so I would say, well, I'm just going to take all of them and then put the extra credits into free electives, which if you're not familiar, free electives is the section of a bachelor's degree that can literally be any credit. So if you're being strategic about it, you're going to pick CLEPs or Sophias or whatever that are like something you're very, very good at, but that haven't had another place in the degree to fit. So if you're really good at public speaking, take a public speaking course or test and apply that there, right? If you're an accounting major, take some math CLEPs and put them there. I'm guessing that this person is that Vendetta 201 is asking this, like, what would be the most advantageous? And in this case, it's just going to depend on what the degree and the college require. There's going to be pros and cons to all of these. My guess between college algebra and college math for CLEP is that college mathematics is slightly easier. It's also worth more credits, but it's also broader. So it's going to get into a little bit of geometry, a little bit of algebra, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. College algebra is just algebra. So if algebra was something you were really good at and you enjoyed, that might be easier for you. If you didn't really like math so much, college mathematics general might be the better fit. If you really liked math, though, you should just do both and get all of the credits for it, as long as there's a spot in your degree. Cersei asks, hello, did you receive your associate, bachelor, or doctorate from Thomas Edison? And I did receive my bachelor's degree from Thomas Edison. I didn't get an associate's degree. I got my master's from Liberty University and my PhD from Liberty University online. The bachelor's with Thomas Edison was in English. The master's from Liberty was in English, and then the PhD is in higher education administration, where my doctorate dissertation was about studying whether taking CLEP exams made adult students more likely to graduate or not. Surprise, surprise. The more CLEP exams you take, the more likely you are to actually graduate from college. Something about being that kind of a motivated person, I think, is a big part of that. All right. Maritza Duarte has a question about Liberty University's online quizzes. I did a video called How to Graduate Liberty University Online in 1 Year with a BS in Business. And she asks, are the exams, quizzes, / finals proctored? Someone told me they weren't, which seemed odd to me. Now, what that means, some schools are proctored in their exams, some are not. Some departments in some schools are, and some departments in the same school are not. What a proctored exam is essentially where you're sitting at home online with your webcam working and you're taking your quiz while the instructor is watching through the camera, or while the proctor, typically not like an actual college professor, but just somebody hired to proctor exams, is watching to make sure that you're not cheating or looking at notes or stuff like that. So what that means here, saying that with Liberty University, I guess I'll just rewind. Basically, Liberty University does not do a lot of proctored exams. Maybe for their ICE exams, like their institutional challenge exams, which are the tests where they say, like, oh, if you can pass this test, we'll give you college credit. It's like their own homemade version of CLEPs, which almost every college has that. So that's something to really keep an eye out for when you're going to your college. But they don't proctor normal in-class tests. Couldn't necessarily tell you why, but they don't. They have been thinking about it and talking about it from all I've heard for a while. But that's just the case, which is why, from what I've heard, a lot of their exams and quizzes are considered open book, or the professors will just say it's open book anyway, because a lot of people would just cheat and make it open book anyway. All right. Nayar. Ooh, this is a good question here. Nayar says, what if I already applied and I got my FAFSA, but FAFSA will not cover everything? So they're going to school, and FAFSA, gosh, I don't even know what FAFSA stands for. Free application for federal student aid. Basically asking the government for loans or grants. Grants are better than loans because grants typically mean free money, and loans typically mean you have to pay the money back, all right, to help pay for college. Nayar, here's the thing, guys. When I consult somebody, the final cost for their degree is usually so low, I haven't even ever bothered to learn about FAFSA because it's just not something that I consult people on, because it's not something I encourage people to do. Like, if you can get a FAFSA and you can get a grant, great. But if you're going to be taking out loans for college, that's just a little bit harder because you're paying back the money afterwards. You're paying a lot of percentages, like interest on that. And student debt is one of those things that even if you die, it doesn't go away. Like, it is persistent. Like, if you declare bankruptcy, you still have to pay your student loans back. If you use the methods that I'm talking about on this channel, you shouldn't have to worry about financial aid in most cases. I'm not going to judge you if you do use loans to pay for school or anything like that. You got to do what you got to do. But it is definitely, for most of my clients, not necessary, because I'm usually quoting prices between like $4,000 and $12,000 over the course of like a year and a half. So if you have a steady job or you've saved up a little bit and you're willing to be frugal for some time, I mean, that's a pretty affordable way to do college, especially compared to what the usual price is. Brian Castro asks, how is Bellevue Online University? And a lot of people are asking me, like, what, is this school good? Is that school good? And it's funny because this is basically what I do entire consultations on with people, where they'll sign up for the first, like, a initial 45-minute consultation, and they'll have a few schools that they're interested in and a few majors, and I'll go through beforehand and research these super in depth and say, okay, this one's going to cost this person that much. They could hack out of this much. This is going to take this amount of time. And then we go over the list and look at preferences of theirs and different things and see exactly what's going on. What I found out about Bellevue is that they are nonprofit and they are regionally accredited, which is something I didn't mention about California Coast University. Being regionally accredited is superior to being nationally accredited or even internationally accredited. You would think that like international is bigger, national is bigger than regional. Those must be better. No, the more local the accreditation is, the better. So there are, I think, something like 7 different regional accreditation bodies in the U.S., and if your school is accredited by one of those, your degree is legit. If your school is only accredited by a national accrediting body, chances are that your credits aren't as likely to transfer to a more prestigious school. Some people aren't going to respect your degree as much. There can just be a couple of problems. Plenty of people have great careers with a nationally accredited bachelor's degree, but you're typically going to see a lot of for-profits having nationally accredited bachelor's degrees, and then really small schools that are like just starting out might start with national accreditation as they build their way up to regional accreditation. So I definitely recommend regional, and for that reason, Bellevue Online is a valid and viable school. They are a little bit more expensive than some other ones, but they are pretty transfer friendly. And they even mention straighter line on their website. That's another thing I love to see a school do. If they mention the fact that you can earn more credits on Sophia and straighter line, then that means that they're more interested in helping their students graduate than they are interested in making sure that they get as much money out of you as possible. So I have a big amount of respect for a school like Bellevue that does that. You might find this kind of funny, a little behind the scenes here. My studio is actually the back third of a shed in my backyard, and I live in Las Vegas, and it is so hot, and I can't run the AC or fans or anything or have windows open while I'm filming to control like the noise and the light, and it is so hot right now. It is really, really warm. I'm suffering for you guys, but it is so worth it to get this information out there, because I'm telling you guys, it's unfair that the system, the career system that we currently have, requires bachelor's degrees for the things that it does. That being said, though, because of that, getting a bachelor's degree can improve your life and change your life so much, especially for wanting to go into something super high level like counseling or medicine or law. I've coached a lot of people who are wanting to go into those fields, and specifically for some reason. But it's a really great thing. And so no matter how sweaty I am so excited to be doing this. I have another question here from Elizabeth Martinez, and she asks, what online university do you recommend for students with dyslexia? So my response to that is I don't have a specific school in mind, but what you should be looking for is a school with a disability services program. And before I even apply to the school, if I had dyslexia and I really wanted help with it, I would call the student with disabilities department. Sometimes it'll be like student aid. There can be a lot of different names for it. And I would just ask them, hey, what are the policies for students with documented disabilities? If your disability is not documented, don't count on getting help with it. But if it is documented, then talk to that department, see what they can offer you. And if it sounds good to you, sounds like you found the right school, along with, a lot of other things you have to take into consideration. Oh, this one is actually really, really fun. This is actually from a former student of mine in real life at a school at Liberty. Yup says, Dr. Stemmy lays down facts. I did my LUO INDS undergrad in less than a year for about $13,000 doing the same synopsis he details, but she did it back in 2020. My kid is doing the Liberty residential INDS For additional costs, but with her academic and legacy scholarships, price is about the same. She'll have an undergrad at 19 years old in less than a year next spring. Dr. Stemmy was both our professors, and we miss him at LU. Consistency is key. Many blessings. Very, very sweet of you, Yup. Thank you very much. But you heard it right there. There is a success story with somebody that I helped, too, which is awesome, who... And I don't say that to like brag. I just say that it makes me so happy to have actually made such a big difference in somebody's life like that. Like that is just the best feeling in the world for me. It's one of the best feelings I feel all day. But $13,000 for an LUO degree, and that was like 2 years ago. Things are even better now for getting degrees at LUO. So I say just knock it out of the park, Yup. Congratulations. Yup does then in another video ask, have any hacks for an MBA? Would love to shave time and money. And like I talked about in the last Q&A, there's just not as many options, but you can look at portfolio credit or prior learning experience at your school and see if they offer anything that applies to their MBA courses. The best you're going to do, though, is probably like 25% of the degree, which is still something. But at the same time, my recommendation, if you can help it at all, is do if you're looking to get a master's, do a master's where you're going to get to talk to people. So ASU has some really great like in-person options, and I think they even have some like classes where you do online discussions, but I would find an online program or a local program where you can go do discussions. And a lot of times master's programs happen in the evenings, so like after work and stuff, which is really nice, and maybe just a couple times a week. Because you learn so much in a master's from your peers and from your professors and getting to talk to them. It's like a quarter the size of a bachelor's degree. It's really worth it to make that extra investment if you at all can. I know not everybody can, but if you can. Let's see what else we got. Vincent Cuneo on my 5 best online colleges for busy adults video asks, out of all the schools you listed, which one would fit best for military? Or all the same, maybe? And here's what I'll say. Partially because they're all greedy. Most of these schools that I mentioned that I ever talk about that are online that I recommend are going to be military friendly because, first off, a lot of interventions that were created for online schooling to become better were designed with service members in mind. So like CLEP was originally like something the military created. Dante's like DSST exams, like what was Dante's, what did it even stand for? It was like Defense something educational system. I don't even remember necessarily, but it was like specifically focused on getting college credit to, current military service members. And the reason for that is because they're busy, and then they come back and they're a little bit older, and they're like, I need a bachelor's degree to integrate, and the military wants to get them back into society. And so they create these quick on-ramps. And then a lot of the civilians are all like, hey, this sounds pretty cool. Like, can we have some of this too? And the government's like, sure. And then a lot of times they'll sell those things out to private businesses. I think College Board acquired CLEP, and Get College Credit, I think, is the company that acquired DSST exams. At least that's my understanding of how it worked. But suffice it to say, a lot of the stuff works great for military members. And these schools want military members because a lot of times these military members come with the GI Bill, which is an easy way for these schools to make money. I know for certain that LUO works really, really good. Liberty University Online works really, really well with service members and just really adores them. So that's one of the first ones that comes to mind for me, but I don't think you're going to be sad with how you're treated at any of these other ones. Final question that I'm going to take, and I really, really like this one. HW asks, how old do you have to be to learn and take these CLEP exams? I have 13 and 14-year-olds. Are they too young? You can be 1 and take a CLEP exam. As long as you have a reasonable idea that you're going to pass it, I say go for it. My only caution is just be careful. When it comes to college is something that people do when they're adults, right? And you want them to be taking ownership of it, because if kids go through high school or even middle school with as young as your kids are thinking like, oh, this is like mom's thing or dad's thing that they make us do, they're never going to quite take ownership of it, and they're not going to have the same level of appreciation for it if they put themselves through this process. So whatever you can do, I don't necessarily have advice for how to make this happen, but whatever you can do to make it their choice, like let them pick the CLEP exam, let them do most of the studying, and you can incentivize it maybe and all this good stuff, but you definitely want them to take ownership of this, because this is like career building stuff. This isn't just high school where it's sort of like you have to do this or you get, in trouble for truancy or something. Like, this is you building a career through a bachelor's degree. And if they don't know why they're doing that, then it's not going to mean as much. They're not going to be as motivated. So something I really recommend is focusing on career stuff first before you start them on CLEP exams. Have them go job shadow people, do a tiny kid internship, go and have them buy lunch for somebody in a management at a company doing a job that these kids might enjoy. Like if this kid wants to be an astronaut, have them watch a ton of videos about astronauts. Have them, if you can, like talk to somebody who works with astronauts and find out more like, okay, so how did you get this job and what did you have to do? And they'll start to hear like, oh, I need a bachelor's degree. I need a bachelor's degree. And then you can start talking to your kids about how much it costs, and you can start talking to them about how long it takes. And you can say, but you know what? We could take some of these CLEP exams, and that might get you closer to being an astronaut. And all of a sudden, the kids are going to start taking a little bit more ownership of that. So even if your kid goes slower because you didn't, lead them through the process, it will be worth it, because ownership and consistency and personal motivation will always trump like speed or just knocking things out or whatever. Like it has to mean something before you can truly own it. All right, guys, that's all that I've got. Thanks so much for watching this conversational advice half hour. I hope that you heard something that was useful to you. Feel free to leave comments and questions down below so that I can answer them in the next one. And like I said, sign up at that link down below for my newsletter so you can be the first person to hear, one of the first people to hear about this cohort project that I'm putting together, where people are going to be able to be part of a group of dedicated college hackers who are going to make this happen. And that cohort's going to come with consultations with me, accountability with others, video lessons, lectures, courses, all sorts of good stuff. It's going to be great. So sign up, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Happy hacking.